my 1,800 pounds. Oh my God, I'm going to figure it out. We're just going to make it work. I'm like, I work in a bar, I work in a bar. I don't care. I have to live with 100 people, I live with 100 people. So basically, yeah, living my great lifestyle, turning into a little valley girl. And then they're like, you know what? We're going to move to Honduras. I went back to my old neighborhood and then I'm like, you know what? This isn't me. Well, London had always been calling since the Spice Girls. Toronto is great, but maybe there's more out there. And if I don't go now, I'm not getting any younger. So I need to make this move, period. I didn't really have any friends here. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere to live.
How are you going to pay for everything?
My 1,800 pounds. Oh my God. I'm going to figure it out. We'll make it work. We're just going to make it work. I'm like, I work in a bar, I work in a bar. I don't care. I have to live with 100 people, I live with 100 people. I mean, I was staying at St. Christopher's Hostel and I hated it. And I'm just like in the stairwell on the phone to Canada being like, I'm all by myself. When I'm sitting in the stairwell, I'm not thinking that on 10 years, I'll be able to be a co-founder at like an agency and like one of the best networks in the world. But it's just like little stepping stones and little moments that kind of get you. And each role I had helped me get the next role. When I was in Toronto, I had a little vision board. So I had the BBC logo on it. I had British passport. I had a picture of like Nick Grimshaw riding a bike in a park because I thought he was like a cool London person and I wanted like cool London friends. I mean, I'm not friends with Nick Grimshaw, but I did get to work at the BBC and I do have a British passport. So, I mean, 2 out of 3, not bad.
And probably out of the 3, they're the ones you wanted to manifest.
I mean, probably. I mean, I did see him at Dawson Superstore once. So I guess like,
well, there
you
we
know.
go.
There you
the
go.
hat trick.
Yeah,
There you go. Hello, my name is Metz Bryan, and I am co-founder and production leader at The Oar.
Now, this person's story spans across continents, countries, and borders. A life in the Americas, living in Canada and Honduras. Being used to being the unique one around her friends and her peers. Learning that she had to take control of her life in her formative years. Flying over to the UK with no job, just a passion, and found a living in advertising, not TV or fashion. Settling after a number of positions at an agency called Mother, she eventually flew the nest to co-found and lead production at the new agency known as The OR.
Awesome.
Look at that.
That's great.
Does that describe your life?
Yeah, kind of, actually. More poetic than usually I would have done it. It's beautiful.
Well, let's get into the details. That is what we're looking to find out today, is how did you become co-founder of The OR? You know, your journey up from working with some of the biggest agencies on the planet and transitioning from Canada to Honduras to London, as Ash said, just going for it. You know, how does one get up the career going through the life you've gone through? So that's what we're looking to find out today. And let's take it back to where it all began. You were born in Toronto briefly and then straight off to Kenya for your first year. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, when you put it that way, I feel like it sounds like I'm really an international jet setter. But I guess in my family, that feels kind of normal. I guess my family, my mom's from El Salvador and my dad's from Guyana. So they emigrated to Canada. So I think that just, you know, thinking about when they were 19 and 21, them moving by themselves, I guess like in our family, it's kind of a normal thing. And even my sister's a diplomat. So she kind of took that on in her like the rest of her life, and she just moves around all the time. So I guess we're a very international family.
So what were your parents like growing up? What kind of parents were they?
I hope they don't listen. They're amazing and very loving, very strict. So I would say my mom was more of the nurturing one. My dad was super strict. I guess he had very high standards. So it was like there was no chill. So, you know, like summer holidays when you like kids get to go play outside and stuff, he would go to the teacher store, which was like a store in Ottawa. This is when I was like primary school. There was called the teacher store. And basically it was a store full of workbooks that teachers would use for class. So basically it's like a store full of homework.
A kid's dream.
Yeah. And he would go to the teacher store and he would buy workbooks and we would have to do them like in our summer holidays. when he would drive us around, he would make us do math drills. I'm like, this is triggering. He would make us do math drills. So we'd like be driving to school, driving to the store, and he'd be like 3 times 3, 3 times 4. Like he would do that, which was insane.
What did you think of that at the time?
I hated it. I don't think I enjoyed it. I was like, can I just relax?
But are you good at maths?
I guess I am. So thanks. This is all the thing. I thank him now, but at the time, I'm just like, why can't I be a normal kid? And we used to do this thing where we'd have like Encyclopedia Britannica. If you could remember that, I don't know.
I remember that.
Like I'm showing my age, but basically before like the internet, you'd have to get encyclopedias or you have to go to the like library. So we had like a few different sets of encyclopedias, and he would make us like read. And my sister's older, but she probably had it worse than me. And like pick like a subject, and then we'd have to like write essays on them. Oh.
Wow.
So like
on top of school.
Yeah. This was like, I thought school was easy. Like that was chill.
What?
Home was worse.
Why do you think he did this?
I think he definitely wanted us to be educated. He wanted to make sure that we were going to be, I guess, successful at the end of the day. Like even now that I think about it as like an older person, so he's from the Caribbean. So he speaks like I'm speaking right now. So I just thought he always sounded like that. But then he goes with his family, and then somehow got an accent coming out. But I think he purposely even spoke like this to us so that we would sound, I don't know, whatever this accent is, boring one, but it would sound a little bit more, I guess, standard.
What do you think he wanted for you as children? Like in the future?
I mean, that's a great question. I think now he's super proud, and I think we turned out okay. So I think that's what he wanted. So he did achieve that. I guess he just wanted to make sure that we wouldn't fall by the wayside or maybe go in the wrong direction. Like very much wanted us to be, proper women. Even when I was like, I don't know, 12, I remember I was hanging out with my friends. This is in Ottawa still. It was Canada. So I was getting a little preteen vibes. And I think I was hanging out with my friends and thinking about going to the mall and all this business, like, in the movies. And he would get really mad. He'd be like, I don't want you to be like a valley girl, or just like, he didn't want us just to become bubbleheads, he would call them. I don't want you to be a bubblehead. So I think he really wanted us to have like a good head on our shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, that has been achieved for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely not
Thanks,
a bubblehead.
Dad.
Yes. So you're loving life. You're thinking about junior high. It's exciting Canadian life, and bam.
Yeah, they really screwed me on that one. I talked to them about this and they have said sorry.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, living my great lifestyle, turning into a little valley girl to their horror. And then they told me when I was 12, my mom and dad, and we had like such a nice house too. We had a pool. Oh my God. It was like living a fantasy. And then they're like, you know what? We're going to move to Honduras. And I was in shock. Like I did not believe them. So I should have maybe had a clue that it was going to happen when it was, I guess, the summer before. It's just a holiday. And we went down to Honduras for a holiday to see the family, because that's like close to my mom's family's there. And I remember we went and it felt like maybe we were scoping things out, but I was just a kid. I wasn't really clocking it. They even sent me to school and I was like, I'm not coming to school. This is hell no.
What do you mean? They just went to show you a school?
Yeah, they went to show me a school, and I was like, this is not going to happen. And then I guess we went back and months had passed. And then I went to camp, like day camp. And I came back from day camp and the house was in boxes. And I was like, oh my God.
It got real.
That was the worst. I hate moving. I moved like 25 times in my life, but I still hate like a house full of boxes.
Do you remember what was the feeling that hit you when you saw those boxes?
FML, probably. That didn't exist then, but like, what is going on? Helplessness, obviously. Man. You're kind of in denial about it. But I was just like, what's going on and what's going to happen to me?
And what did they say? Do you remember speaking to them when you saw this?
They were you know what? I remember the house full of boxes, and that's all. Blocked. I think I blocked it out, but it was probably like, well, we kind of discussed it, and we've got to go. And so my sister's older. She's 7 years older than me. So she wasn't coming with us. She's like 19 years old. She's going to university. So it was like, I guess it was just having to jump on this roller coaster. And as a child, you're pretty helpless. I think that's like why I love being adult, because I love having the control. I'm a bit of a control freak, but I hated like being at the mercy of their decisions.
So you come back from camp, but things are in boxes. And when do you fly? When?
Pretty soon after. I think we were there, end of the summer because I had to go to school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, no, actually, you know what? We drove. This is all coming back. We drove to Miami.
Okay.
From Canada.
Ooh, how long did that take?
That's
quite
a long distance.
They probably tried to fashion it as a holiday.
Road trip.
Road
trip. So we all went as a whole family. So we drove from Ottawa to Miami. It took like a week. We did go to Disney, so that was kind of cute. And then we had to jump on the plane, and that was it. And it was like, bye.
And so the city you went to, you said it wasn't then, but it is now.
It has been in the recent years, the murder capital of the world. It's called San Pedro Sula, and it's in Honduras on the north coast.
So very different to Ottawa.
Oh, absolutely. Like maybe you go to Mexico on holiday or Costa Rica, but it's different when you live there, because you're actually living in the house. Like it's hot there. We didn't have AC. They're like bugs. Like the plumbing is different. The people are different. The streets are different. Everything is like different. I'm like 12 years old. I'm like, I didn't ask for this.
The dream of a Canadian movie style teenage.
Yeah, I wanted to go to high
smashed.
school with the lockers and
yeah.
Saved by the Bell.
Yes. I remember
Do you guys
that.
have that?
Yeah, Saved by the Bell.
I wanted Saved by the Bell. I did not get Saved by the Bell.
No.
It was a nightmare.
What were the kind of first things you remember from kind of landing down in Honduras and being like, okay, this is my life now? Good or bad? Or bad or good?
It was all bad. Like props to Honduras. Anyone's Honduran, like shout out to you.
Well, I think that's a good point. Like this talk from your, how old were you when you moved?
12.
So your 12-year-old perspective.
I thought, I hate this. Oh my God. I have no freedom here. I felt like it's like kind of a prisoner because I didn't have any freedom. Like in Canada, I had a bike and I could ride my bike to like my friend's house or ride it to the corner store. You could ride it. I used to ride my own bike to school, have a bit of like freedom. And there's like absolutely no freedom. So, I have to get my mom to drive me everywhere. You feel like a bit more cooped up in the house. You don't really want to go out at night. So it just felt like I was quite trapped. And this is before the internet and everything. We had like cable TV, but we had like, I don't know, MTV was maybe the closest thing. It was a Spanish MTV as well.
Did you know Spanish?
Oh, yeah. Also, by the way, I didn't even know Spanish.
Ouch.
I forgot that bit.
Yeah.
So my Spanish was not very good because my mother didn't teach me. Again, I was saying my dad had this thing about the accent. I think my mother also had a thing. So now I think the world is more global. So we're a lot more open to being into different languages, and we've got some great Latin stuff going on. We got, Bad Bunny, J Balvin. We've got really great Netflix shows. So it feels like you want to connect with the culture a bit more. But back then it was not like that. And I think that she had her own reasons for wanting to separate herself from maybe that and wanted to create her own family that was a new nucleus, and it was very English. So she didn't speak to me in Spanish when I was like growing up. So it didn't come naturally. So then by the time I was like 10, she's like, oh, you should probably know Spanish. Well, it's a bit late. So I'd had like a tutor, but it was a bit late. So I did have to go to school in Spanish, and I did actually do well. So I guess I figured it out. An ongoing theme is like, you just got to figure it out and figure out some hacks. And also I had like a Spanish English dictionary. I used to like write the answers in the dictionary, like a few little helpful things, because I felt like I needed a little bit more of an advantage over like my classmates. But yeah, that was another thing that just felt really like isolated, because it's like a language barrier. It's like a cultural barrier. I don't have any friends. There's no internet. My sister's not there. So it's like, okay, you've got nothing really.
And I think the point here is not that Canada's a great place and Honduras isn't. It's the challenge of a 12-year-old moving from a very comfortable environment with a nice bike and a pool and friends, with the dream of living the movie teenage years, to something very different from that and not being prepared for it. And that's a lot for a 12-year-old to go through.
Yeah, I feel like I probably at the time it felt really awful. It was like a really big thing that I felt like I was trapped. It was like I was put upon, why me kind of thing. But I suppose it's a good lesson to learn at 12, and even to have to deal with that for like 5 years, because it got better, but I never was happy. Like the whole 5 years I was there, like I hated it the whole time. But I tried to find ways to occupy myself. Like it's literally like sounds like prison. But I did try and find, made some friends, go to high school, join clubs, go in the choir, play sports, try and find like a way to enjoy it slightly. But it was always with that idea of, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to have to figure out how to get out of here. And I need to like make sure that I don't need to depend on my parents, and I need to do it for myself. And I think that was like a huge driving force for me, for sure. Probably helps. It's probably like part of my ambition and stuff. Because like I'm thinking, getting emotional now, because it was like, oh, it was awful. But now I'm very thankful for it.
Do you feel like that was a lesson that your mum and dad wanted to put you through, so that you then had a contrast?
I think so. I think that they've grown up in those countries, right? And they didn't want a little brat running around thinking that they're living like in Saved by the Bell, And I think that it was probably quite brave of them to do that, because they knew that they were going to have a teenager that hated them like the whole time. But to be fair, most teenagers hate their parents anyway. So I guess like I might as well teach them a lesson in the process. And now I really appreciate it. And I think that having a bit of grit and a little discomfort is really important. And so I do like to do that for myself anyway. And I don't think I would have that attitude if I hadn't known that it actually pays off in the end.
If you have goals and ambitions within your personal life, career, or business, and would like to overcome the challenges that you face, inspire people, and get to your goals faster, then a coach might be the right solution for you. Go to weunify.co.uk/coach. Now back to the show. I'd love to know what you miss from Honduras. There's got to be something about it that you think that was unique to Honduras and that was nice.
Well, I haven't gone back since the year 2000, and I've never wished to.
Okay.
Do you think it would be helpful and healing to go and find things? Because there's no doubt loads of amazing things about Honduras.
You know what? It's a beautiful country. I'm not going to lie. It is a beautiful country. And my friends, I still have like friends that I met in high school. There's a group chat. And one of my best friends, actually crazy, she texted me and she just moved to the UK. My best friend from there. So like I'm going to meet up with her.
How cool.
And I've seen her once, like maybe 5 years ago, she came for work. And before that, I hadn't seen her for like 16 years.
You get to the end of your sentence in Honduras and you graduate. What's next?
So I was so happy. I was so happy, but also very scared, because when I went back to Canada, it was always understood that, once I finished my high school there, that my parents knew that I had to go back to Canada, because there's no opportunity there, that was just not going to work out. So when I went back, I remember I just had to pack like one big suitcase. And when you're like 17, what did I put in my suitcase? I put all my mixtapes. Like, what? Like, this is so important, guys. I need all my mixtapes because they're going to like last forever. And I used to like listen to the radio religiously. And then I'd want to get all the songs. Obviously, like you tape all the right songs. And then I'd do that for a year. And I would do everything. Like I'd do the old school channel. So I got into like oldies, all like the pop stuff, some Spanish stuff. And then at the end of the year, I would make a best of volume series.
Wow. Did it have a title? Metz's?
Yeah, I was like Metz's 1996 volume 1, like super creative title.
So you have this rug pulled underneath you, go to Honduras, and then you say to your parents, or use an agreement with your parents that I need to finish high school in the US so I can get into in Canada so I can get a Canadian university, and you go through a massive transition back.
Yeah. So that was another thing, because when you're in jail, and you're thinking about the outside world. I mean, I don't know. I watch a lot of like questionable television, like Life After Lockdown, and then you can see how people coming out of prison, you have this fantasy, but then when you get to reality, it's quite difficult. So obviously, I wasn't in prison, so I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it was different to go back to a new Canada 5 years later, because it was almost like I didn't even know what Canada was like anymore. I wasn't the same as when I was 12. I'm now older, have had more life experience. I've seen more. I went back to my old neighborhood with all of the kids that I went to elementary school with. They lived their Saved by the Bell fantasy. And then I'm like, you know what? This isn't me. Like, I don't want that. And I don't get it. This is not what I like. So it was like starting over again. I had one friend who like stuck with me the whole time, and she's still my friend. I've been friends with her like 9 years old. So she was actually like a pen pal.
Okay, you stayed in touch.
Yeah, like literally letters in like the early 90s.
Wow.
She would actually send me the OG voice notes. She sent me tapes of her talking.
Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I still have that somewhere.
Amazing.
And she'd be, we're like angsty teens, like, oh, life is so hard. And I'm thinking, this is, it was so
and
serious.
You'd send
at
her
the time.
tapes back?
I think I must have. Yeah. So we did do that, and
you
we
need to find those.
I think they're in a basement in Toronto.
Yeah.
I think I do know where they are. But we used to do that. And then once we got email, we used to
MSN?
It was actually like my first email, Honduran email, was like this weird, I don't know. It looked like some weird like DOS stuff. It wasn't even like proper interface.
Wow.
And it was like one family email. So I'd get the email and then print it.
Whoa. Print it off and read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then after I finally got my Hotmail. So then I felt like more independent. But she was one of my friends who I stayed in touch with. So when I got there, she was actually a different high school. So she was there. But in my high school, I really had to kind of start from scratch and find like new friends. And I ended up, the first year was like, not really make too many friends. Because I had to do 2 years before university. But the second year I actually made friends with, I guess you could say, not the cool people, but the cool people in high school are like not really cool when you grow up like later.
Yeah.
So it was like the smart people who actually were really lovely, and we're still friends to this day. And we kind of created this weird misfit group in our senior year and ended up having like such a great year. And so I did get my little Saved by the Bell fantasy in the end with all of the misfits.
You have a locker?
I had a locker, yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. And on your birthday, they decorate it.
Wow.
It's great.
Okay. Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
But nobody locked you in a locker.
No,
that can happen. We've seen that
no.
in movies.
I would
That's good.
definitely beat them up. But it was a big transition, because I realized that it wasn't all about, the cars and the clothes and all this stuff. I think the friends that I did end up meeting had a bit more depth, because they probably all had their own story and they were all really quite focused on maybe less superficial things. So I think that's kind of finding my lane and finding my tribe, like part one.
Okay. And then, so you go through university, and how was that?
What did you study?
So actually, when I was this is in Ottawa, the high school situation. Ottawa like is the capital of Canada, but it's kind of like the forgotten city. And it's kind of boring. It's kind of a boring city. It's just a government town that happens to be the capital. And there's not a lot of culture going on. It's not very inspiring. Sorry to anyone from Ottawa as well. I'm sorry I'm hating on everywhere I lived, but this is my experience. So when I was there, everyone though wanted to stay. So in high school, at the end, everyone's thinking about, where am I going to apply to? What school am I going to go to? And a lot of them were going to go to either Ottawa University or Carleton University. So those are the two Ottawa universities there. And I didn't want to stay. Like, it was great to get back to Canada, to get back into like that world. But once I got to Ottawa again, I felt like it was just not big enough and I wanted more. I think that's another theme. Like, it's like you go somewhere and you just feel like, I just feel like there's more out there to experience. And I want to be part of something bigger.
Yeah.
So when I was there finishing high school, I said, I'm going to Toronto because that's going to be the big city, shiny lights. And no one from my high school, it seemed like, was going there. And so I had in my head, I'm going there. So I'm going to apply to the Toronto schools. I wouldn't recommend it to high schoolers, but essentially, like, we just had booklets in like the guidance office. And I was just looking at Ryerson being like, what can I study there? I just didn't go there. What can I study there? And they had a program called Graphic Communications Management. And I thought, well, it sounds kind of like interesting, graphics, maybe graphic design. So I literally applied for this program. Let's be honest, I didn't even know what it was. Because when we got there on day one, they're like, oh, by the way, this is actually about a printing course.
Oh, wow.
And so half the people the next day, they're like, nobody's there. It's like 20 people left.
No way.
But I had decided, I felt like I had made the decision and it was so hard to get in. Like, even getting to Ryerson was harder than the other schools. And I had a lot of like sacrifice on the family to help me even move there. Like, my sister, she won this contest and she got a cash prize. And they never really said, but I know this happened. And she actually like put some of that cash prize towards me being able to afford to live in residence for that first year.
So fast forwarding a little bit, 2004, you were a production assistant in Toronto?
Yeah,
right?
So my program, I really want to thank my program because even though I didn't necessarily set out to study print, but it was also graphic art. So it's still relevant. I mean, I'm just working on print stuff today, to this day. So it did help, but it was and this is before, I guess, social media and all this stuff. So it was still very much like a visual arts medium and very much media kind of world. So one of the things about the program was that our chair, she was very strict and she had high standards. And she said, you have to get an internship in your third year in the summer. If you don't get it, you don't graduate. You can't do the next year. You can't do your final year. So you better get it. We'll do a job fair, but there's not enough jobs for everybody. So you need to sort it out.
Well,
stress. So I went to the job fair. Didn't get the job, which was so nerve-wracking because you imagine like all your peers are on the job fair. It's a giant hall. It's like speed dating and they have a gong and it's like this legendary thing for the program. So they do 2 years to do the internship. They do graduate and she brings all her like network and everyone there. And you have to sign up for who you want to talk to, like 12 people. You've got like maybe 5-10 minutes each. You go and you have to speed date, interview, and a gong, and then you move to the next, and it's like 2 hours long. When you're a student, I mean, now that'd probably be a lot.
Yeah.
That sounds
12 interviews
very
in a
intense.
day. Well, in about an hour. It sounds 2 hours.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. But so as an intern, and I remember I was like, I really wanted to get, jobs at a couple places. And, after the job fair, everyone's like, oh, well, this person called me back. This person called me back. And then it's like so much pressure. And if you didn't get the call back, you think, I'm a loser. No one's going to pick me. I'm never going to have a career. What am I doing? And all these like things that you fear. So I didn't get any. So I didn't actually get any job from the job fair.
How did you feel?
Really stressed and like how I'm never going to make it in life. Like my whole life is over basically.
Wow.
So I had to go on like online. I was like literally on job.com or whatever, trying to find a job in the industry. And they're like, it doesn't have to be, you just need to find any role in the building. So I found this job. So I went online and they needed like a receptionist. And another guy had gotten a job there as like more like a print thing. And so I'm like, I'm going to go in for the receptionist job. And I got the job as a receptionist, like amazing. It was like it was like a print production place, like large format stuff. And I remember I was a receptionist for like a couple of weeks. And the guy there was a production manager and he was a little, I don't know, he was old school guy. I think maybe looking back, he might have had like some personal issues, but I remember he was old friends with the owner, and they were outside once, just outside of the office, and they're yelling at each other, and it's going off out there, and I'm like, what is going on? And basically they have this huge spat, and the production manager, he's like, F this, I'm not having it, I'm out. He just storms off, and that's it. He's gone. He's quit.
Oh, what were you thinking?
I'm thinking, what's going on? What is this drama? And so then he comes back, and I think the owner was like, yeah, I think he's just quit. But he was like, you know what though? Do you wanna like try doing his job?
And his job was?
He was like a production manager. Like,
Wow.
He was basically running all of like the orders and doing all the costing and getting the everything out the door.
Wow.
And he's been doing this for like God knows many years. I'm literally a receptionist. But for some reason, I was like, yeah, yeah, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's probably like, if she can do it, I'm saving loads of money. But
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking that at the time. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, this is an opportunity,
That's it.
and I'm going to take it, even though I don't really know what I'm doing.
But as you said, you're on your own.
I'm on my
You gotta
own.
make
I
it.
got to do it. And I
Yeah.
think like when you see an opportunity, just take it. Just be open. Just take it. Again, like don't be scared of your decision. Lead with like a passion and love. Don't lead by fear. So when he said, do you want to do it? I said, I'm going to do it. And actually, I ended up doing that job for the whole summer and getting tons of experience
Amazing.
and having a really great time there. And
Doing it well?
And I smashed it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I did it, and I, made friends with all the suppliers, and I really enjoyed working with the team there. So in the end, it became like not just a receptionist job, because I mean, that was fine, but this actually was preparing me for the next thing. And I remember when it was time for final job fair, for graduating job fair, I was doing the speed dating thing. Again, it's a little easier when you've done it before. And there was a company I really wanted to work for because they did print stuff, their photography. They were really cool. They had a cool location. The office was really good. It didn't feel like some stuffy old print stuff. It felt like really modern. And they were doing more than they did like retouching. It was kind of more of a studio. I was like, that's where I feel like I'll fit in. And I remember when I sat down and the guy who's interviewing, he was like, oh, you worked for Scott? Well, any guy who works for Scott's a friend of mine. And I think that it was just like some miracle that the guy that I ended up working for in my internship, and I stayed for the year, ended up being friends with the one who actually really helped me in my career and was actually someone who was a big, big person who helped me get into the agency world.
Wow.
So you never know who's going to help you. So just take an opportunity and do your best and don't be a jerk.
Say yes and then work it out how you're going to do it.
Pretty much.
And so your next experience, you move into this company, and how was that TI group?
Yeah, so I worked at TI group for 5 years. It was my first job out of school, and I think I ended up staying there the longest because I didn't really know any better, right? I was still like early 20s. So I remember I started that job, I was like the youngest person in the whole building. So I felt like I had a lot to learn. The guy, Mike, who hired me, he was super just, those people that are just lovely and really supportive. He was super supportive of me, and he really just appreciated like what I was doing. I was definitely helping his business, but he really supported me and appreciated me. So he's like, oh, we're going to go to lunch with the agency. He'd wine and dine them and let me come with him. And I'd see like the agency office downtown. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Or I'd go to these restaurants and then, feeling like this is like the fantasy world that you dream about. That's when I got the idea of like, I need to go to agency side. But it took a while to really understand that world because no one was there telling me it existed.
And usually in the start of your career especially is the time where mistakes are made. You're learning, difficult. Were any memories from where things didn't work out so well?
Well, you know what? I spent a lot of time trying not to make mistakes. I know that sounds like a cliche, but when you're like a woman and you're Black, and my dad was like very much like, don't ever make a mistake. I was like really trying. It was very much like, don't make a mistake. So I think that, to be honest, I made more mistakes when I came to London than I did then, because I was so almost too careful.
Yeah.
I think the mistake that I made was not making enough mistakes,
I get
or
you.
being too afraid to step out of line, just being a little bit too rigid, and maybe that kind of slowed me down a bit. And maybe that's why I stayed for 5 years, because I was just wanted to stay in my lane and not make a mistake.
Where do you think that rigid, playing by the rules and trying to do everything perfect gets you in your career, do you think?
Well, I think it's hard, because in the beginning, I feel like it helped me establish myself as someone that could be trusted in that role.
Yeah.
But it almost becomes like you're kind of in this worker bee scenario, where I was like a really good worker bee. But that didn't really allow for a lot of growth. So I suppose in the early stages, it's really good to find that discipline and build that trust amongst people to know that you can be relied on. But moving forward, I think I could have probably been a little bit more myself, a little bit more personality, a little bit more vocal about things. And it took me that time to find my voice, I think, even within that company, which I ended up doing a very dramatic exit from.
Oh God,
tell us.
Yes, tell us some of that, please.
Well, basically, I had been at this company for 5 years, and it was going through like a restructure. So they had a new boss come in, and he was I didn't appreciate and align with his views. Let's say it that way. And he had his wife there too, and I didn't appreciate her attitude. Let's say it that way. So I was thinking, over time, you're thinking, I already know that I need to get out of print. I need to expand, because now it's like Facebook is brand new. Like MySpace was out there, and I was getting a sense that there's something is on the rise. Do you know when you feel that? Something's on the rise here, and I can't be stuck in this print world, because this is gonna get obsolete pretty quickly. I remember feeling that. So that was in my mind, and also like agency world and all this stuff. So this new guy comes in, I'm thinking, well, maybe this is a sign, because I don't really like this guy and I'm not really vibing with him. And one day I was in the back room trying to sort something out, and his wife comes up to me about something or other, and she just yells at me. She yelled at me in front of everybody. And I thought, absolutely not. Like, do not yell at me. Period. I might not be a big shot, but I know that doesn't feel right. And I feel like I deserve more respect than that. So that was just like the straw that broke the back. Her yelling at me, and me really kind of searching within myself and feeling, that doesn't feel right. I don't want to take this. If
self-respect.
You feel, when you're like, if I stay in this, they might just chip away at me until I'm like nothing left. And I already knew that I just wanted more. So I remember we had a chat in the guy's office, because he was having chats with everyone now, one-on-ones, like, oh, this is a new leadership. And we were in his office, which had like the big window to like the press room, because, the big boss, it's very old fashioned. The big boss like stares out to like all the workers. And so the window is there, and I remember sitting there, and I think all the guys in the press room, we're all homies, because you need them to be your friends to get all the jobs done for you. And they all knew that like I wasn't happy, because they had witnessed the dressing down in the back.
Is this the same day or a different day?
It was like the next day or the day after. And so the big boss, he gave me this big old spiel about how the direction they wanted to go in, and am I in and am I out, because we really want you to be able to be in line with what we're trying to do. And I just thought, this guy is really just making my skin crawl. Like, I'm not going to do this. And I remember I typed out the letter of my resignation before, like, just in case, put in an envelope, just like put in my pocket. And I remember the moment where I was just like sitting there listening to him go on and on, thinking, no, absolutely not. No. I'm out. And he's like, so what do you think? Are you in or are you out? And I was like, took out the envelope from my pocket and I put it on the table, and I slid it over, and I was like, I'm out. And then all the press room guys, I could see, they were like, yeah. And I was
his
like,
reaction?
He was just like stunned. He wasn't ready. I think he wasn't ready. And of course, like, I'm still quite young. He's probably like, who's this little girl right now, like giving me this attitude. But and by the way, I didn't have another job, by the way. I didn't have another job to go to. I did have like a flat I had to pay for. I really hadn't like lined up anything else.
Wow.
Like I was hoping it would work out, but I just knew I had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have that feeling, intuition. I just go with it. Always.
Yeah.
I always just go with it. So after that, I felt really good, but also I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to figure this one out real quick. But you know what? The universe hooked me up. I was very lucky. Like I'm not a model, but I had like one modeling gig from street casting.
Yeah.
And I actually got that gig as soon as I quit. And that helped me that month.
So you were struggling for money that month.
Yeah. It's like, I quit my job. I have to pay for my stuff. I don't have another job. And then I got this gig.
And how much did it get you, this gig?
It was like enough for the month. It was basically the month. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I was in a cell phone ad, mobile phone ad. Yeah. How about that?
How did you feel when you got it? You're like, oh.
I was relieved. I was like, you know what? It's going to be okay. And I remember I did this other thing too, because like The Secret had just come out. Remember that book, The Secret, which is a bit controversial, but I was like really into it. #Oprah. And I also had written down that I wanted to like make more money. I was like, I want to make this much more money. It was like, to me, a lot more than I was making. And I wrote it down and
How
I put
much
it.
Was it?
It was like 60,000.
Okay. And what were you earning at the time?
Like maybe like 50.
Okay.
So the back of that, I was like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Now it's probably not so much in Canadian, but
That's
then it was
Canadian
like, that's
dollars.
going to be a good thing. And I remember I wrote it down on, okay, you're going to laugh. I put it as my BlackBerry background.
Oh,
Nice.
BlackBerry days.
Yeah.
BlackBerry background.
Mhm.
And I remember I'd look at it every day. And I remember I was sitting around, I was talking to this agency that I had been working with. They were like basically the only agency I had a connection with. And I remember just when I was just about to give up, being like, what am I going to do? They called me and they're like, oh, you can come in, it's a freelance gig, but like, this is the salary. It was the amount that I wanted.
Really? 60,000?
Oh,
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh my God, it works.
Mm.
And even though it's freelance, my attitude was like, it's not freelance. This is forever.
Yeah.
So even in my head now, it was never freelance, but technically it was. I was just in denial because I'm like, I'm going to act like I'm permanent.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just put my foundation down here because this is it. So it ended up becoming permanent. But the mindset was like, I was just so determined, but it felt like that was going to be the thing. And sometimes I get that feeling, sometimes I don't. But when the feeling is there, I go with it.
And this is Ben Simon
Byrne.
Ben Simon Byrne.
Yeah.
You stayed there for 2 years.
Yeah, lovely, lovely agency.
And then you decide London. London is calling. How does that come about?
Yeah.
Well, London had always been calling since the Spice Girls.
Okay.
London had been calling for a while. I was always obsessed with the culture, even from high school, right? But obviously I needed to focus on just getting to Canada, just one step at a time. But it was always there in the background. And I think as I got older, I met like my best friend when I was like 26 and she had the same obsession. And so it felt like we just were feeding our obsession with each other. And it felt like this is the time because there's a scheme for Canadians to come to the UK and there's like a cap on the age. And I felt like after the first year Ben Simon Byrne, it was really fun. I loved it. But again, that itchy feet, there's more for me. Toronto is great, but maybe there's more out there. And if I don't go now, I'm not getting any younger. I'm not getting older every day. So I need to make this move. Period. It was another feeling that I had to go with. I couldn't ignore it, or maybe I'm just like denying myself. So I had really no idea how to approach it, to be fair. I was just going to get my visa, get the bare minimum to go because they had to be like certain amount of money you have to save. And that was it. I was like, I'm just going to do it and I'm going to work it out. Period. So after the second year of Ben Simon, I tried to everything that year, save the money, came to visit just to double check.
Okay.
My best friend was supposed to come to move with me. She didn't, but that's another story. I'll tell you later. And I just told all my friends I was going to do it. And I secretly got the visa without my work knowing. And then when I did get the visa, I told them.
Okay.
You only have to give 2 weeks notice as well there.
Wow.
Just like the movie.
So 2 weeks later, you were on the plane.
Pretty much. I moved on my birthday. Yeah, I moved on like 3 days after my birthday. And to be honest, I really, if I did that today, that's crazy because I didn't really have any friends here. I knew one person as a minor acquaintance. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere to live.
How are you going to pay for everything?
How I was going to pay for it? With like this, like my 1,800 pounds. Oh my God, it was stupid.
Wow.
It's dumb.
1,800 pounds has to let you survive for you don't know how long at this point.
Well, yeah.
And there's no job fair with a gong. That you
There's
can just
no
walk to.
gong.
No gongs.
There was no gong. That's why I look back and I think, well, my dad was really mad at me for doing it, by the way. He was so mad. But he was scared for me because he probably was thinking this is a little bit reckless.
What did he say to you?
Don't move there.
Straight to the point.
So no long lecture.
Don't move
just
there.
3 words.
But to be fair, I just felt like, what's the worst that can happen? I guess I'll have to go back to Canada, I suppose. I've moved countries before. It's going to work out. In my head, I'm going to figure it out. We'll make it work. We're just going to make it work. I'm like, work in a bar, work in a bar. I don't care. I have to live with 100 people. I live with 100 people.
Are you an agency or brand that would like to work with our production company, Unity and Motion? If so, contact us at unityandmotion.com. We produce commercials and social content for brands such as Chanel, Amazon, Reebok, Harrods, The Ritz, and many more. Now back to the show.
I'll work it out. So yeah, I do remember. I remember when I like moved here, and it was like the first day, and for some luck, like I was very lucky. Actually, let me rewind, because this was like quite a big stepping stone. Is when I was in Toronto, I went to a restaurant, and a girl from my work was there from Ben Simon, and I didn't really talk to her much, but she was like in creative services. And I was like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? I heard like you're moving to London, because she was moving because of her husband got a job here. And she was like, yeah. You know what? I've been talking to this recruiter. She's been really, really good. So you know what? Like you're moving. Oh, you're moving. I didn't know that. Here, take her contact. And I said, well, yeah, because I was looking online at like different recruiters and you know, that's not such a big thing in Canada. So it was like a whole new world. And she's like, she's really nice. So I reached out, and she was so lovely and so supportive. And she's like, oh my God, this is great. This is the place. This is the type of roles you could do. These are the places. I think you'd be great. I love your attitude. You just got like a really just fresh, different take on things, even though I really had no idea what I was doing, but she really just bought into my personality. And so she lined stuff up for me when I got here, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I guess that I was like, there's something there, you know, there's opportunities. So I'm just going to have to seize the opportunity and make it work. And so the day after I moved, I mean, I was staying at St. Christopher's Hostel in a room with like 7 girls. It was ridiculous. It was like the cheapest room. And I hated it because A is like a million girls, and I used to live alone. They had the shower. We had to press the button for the water to come out.
And it comes back out again.
Oh my God. I'm like, what? Am I back in jail? Am I in Honduras again? Like, I felt like I had really downgraded. And so this could just, you know, and I'm just like in the stairwell on the phone to Canada being like, I'm in a stairwell in the St. Christopher's, and I don't know and I'm all by myself. Like, what have I done?
This is not how the Spice Girls live.
This is like, I'm at the bottom right now. So I remember that morning I woke up, I had this interview, it was at DDB. It's pretty good.
Oh, so describe what DDB is for people who don't know.
Oh, DDB is now Adam and Eve DDB. So it's like huge global network, super successful.
This is in 2012.
Yeah, they were This is literally right before they were Adam and Eve DDB.
I see.
2014, I think it was.
Yeah, it was like 2012, 13, like. But basically, so they were still an iconic agency, VW, like huge, right? So I remember my recruiter, she's like, listen, I know this guy, it's an early 8:30 meeting. So you should get him a coffee. And I was like, really? She's like, trust me. I would never usually go and bring a coffee to my interviewer. But she gave me that advice. And so I'm like, I'll do whatever you say. So I get there and I give him a coffee and he's just really happy. Seems like really grateful for that. So I was like, amazing tick. But I just moved to like London the day before and I hadn't heard about all the different vernacular we use, especially in the industry. Like they call planners, like strategists, planners. I didn't know that. So I remember in this interview and he's going on about the relationship between planners and creatives. And I really had no idea what he was talking about. I'll be honest. Sorry, guys. And I just made up some answer and I think he was happy with it. And I was thinking like, well,
getting away with this one.
Just smile and just be positive and just try and be someone that they want to have around, basically. Yeah. And I found out later that day that like I got it. It was freelance. I got it. And I was like, oh my God, I got a job like the day I moved here at DDB. Whoa, oh my gosh.
This is going to work out.
This is going to work out.
Trust my intuition.
It worked. So I have to say, you know, when you move to London and you meet all these people, I met a lot of Canadians in the network and they're like, oh man, it's so hard here. And it's like really gloomy and it's like going to knock you down. And like, yeah, I've had a few of these weird situations like nightmare landlords and like toxic people. But overall, getting that opportunity in day one, it just changed my whole attitude. And I thought, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's going to work out. So yeah, did I run out of money? Of course I ran out of money. 1,800 pounds is not enough. But my sister lent me some and I paid her back.
Right.
So, you know, you figure it out and, you know, create a network again. The friend that let me stay with him, my very light acquaintance that I had met in a park once from Canada, who was so generous and let me stay at his house until I got my own place.
Wow.
He's still a good friend of mine today. And we're like, you know, we created like a new network here too. So
some really key relationships there that you had through introductions or family or a park, you know, the recruiter to your sister.
You never know. You never know who's going to help you. Like, you know, when you're thinking, I want to get to this point. I want to get to that point. I mean, when I'm sitting in the stairwell or taking a shower with a stupid button, I'm not thinking that, you know, on 10 years, I'll be able to be a co-founder at like an agency and like one of the best networks in the world. But it's just like little stepping stones and little moments that kind of get you. And each role I had helped me get the next role. So DDB was the first role. And when I was there, they announced the merger with Adam and Eve. I was freelance, so I ended up going to Gray for a bit. But then when they set up their department, the guy who knew the department head, he worked with me at DDB when I was freelance. He was one of like the senior, like he was a project director.
Right.
So now he's actually the boss and he remembered me. So then he's asking me for a job. So then I get to work at Adam and Eve and we win like Cannes Agency of the Year. And suddenly I'm working at the best agency in the world because of that. And it's like, well, this is a bit of a lucky break, but also like I'm working hard. I'm trying my best to make the best impression.
What do you think was the key thing that you did or about you that got you those positions and got you recognized and people wanted to work with you?
I think, to be honest, when I was in university, the chairwoman, she had one piece of advice and it was attitude is everything. And I think I basically paid my whole tuition just to learn that because I can't remember anything else really. But that's the best piece of advice because it's having a positive, good attitude. I didn't know everything, especially when I started. I was basically learning as I went, but not obviously, but being a solutions focused person. Have a good attitude, solutions focused, be helpful. I wanted to be someone that they remembered and someone that they think it's better when she's around. Whether it's that she knows everything or actually sometimes people just want someone fun to be around.
How do you think they would describe your personality at that time?
I remember actually when I was like my first day at DDB or my first Friday at DDB and I was like, oh my God, everyone here's British. This is so cool. And I was hoping I was doing a job and I went on Facebook and the girl added me who was sitting in front of me on Facebook. And I went and looked on her page and then on the day I started, she had written like, oh my God, this girl has started. She's so cool. I'm so glad. she's here. And I was like,
Wow.
I was so
that's
excited.
me.
And I think maybe that just drive me so just different. Honestly, probably a breath of fresh air potentially. Like that's how my recruiter used to describe me, because I'm just like this random Black Canadian girl just showing up. Never probably seen something like that before. And I'm very curious, and I just want to know you, and I just want to be a part of it. And when they invited me on Friday to the pub, I was like, this is really big.
Do you think it meant so much more to you because you'd spent so much time alone, or so much time, you know, in environments where you did feel like maybe an outsider, and this was a chance to like be part of something?
I think that when I was in high school, that's definitely how I felt. And then as I grew and found the people that I aligned with more, especially when I moved to Toronto, went to university, I felt like each step of independence is a step to open up yourself to just be more yourself. So I feel like by the time I got to London, obviously it was really a different situation, but I felt like all I could do was have my personality. That's all I've got. I mean, I don't have a flat and I don't have much money. And I don't have an experience here. So what can I do is just have my personality and see how I can connect with someone. What can I learn from you? And maybe what can we connect on? I think that I'm just very open to making friends. So I will just go for it.
How did the opportunity so you spent 2 years at Adam and Eve?
Yeah.
And then opportunity comes up to work with McCann, another huge global agency, as project director. How does that come about?
Well, Adam and Eve was amazing, and I was doing more of like a production role there, and obviously it's super prestigious. But I really did enjoy project management as well. And so I did have an opportunity. McCann was starting a new department. And so when I went to McCann, I met Jo Howes, who was the head of project management there. And she was just like, I'm still friends with her now. I just loved her energy. I loved her spirit and her passion for project management and what she wanted to build. And I just connected with her straight away. And I thought, this is an amazing jump. It's kind of taking a steer away from production, but this is actually what I love as well, is building teams and finding the right range of people and that connection and the communication and what can we build and what energy can we create together. So to me, it felt like a really great step up. And it's really hard when you're foreign, to any foreigners listening, because you have to get sponsored to stay in the country. So you're not just taking any job. Your job is your livelihood, but it's also like your life. And for someone who just was so obsessed with living here, there was a lot of pressure to do well in work, because if you get fired, you're kicked out the country. Which is not, so there's like a lot of pressure there. Like I can't get fired and I can't really quit either unless I have something lined up. I can't be sliding the envelopes across desks anymore. That is the thing of the past. So basically, it's not just even a simple thing where I meet her, I think she's amazing, and then she offers me and I say, cool. I meet her, she's amazing. She has to like me a lot more because they have to pay for my sponsorship. They have to spend 3 months doing the paperwork.
So every job you've got up to this point, the companies had to put in
up until the BBC was the last
extra
one.
Yeah. Work.
So it was also a small miracle that they wanted me enough to do that when they could pick someone else that didn't have to do that. So I feel very grateful for that. And I think, that's a big win for me, for sure. Because that's not common usually. And also to all the foreigners, sometimes you think, oh my gosh, that's too much. No one's going to do that for me. I'm stuck. But we're not stuck. Don't be stuck. Keep searching and keep looking and keep positive, because it happens. It happened to me and it happened to other people too.
Yeah.
And I was able to build a career as well as stay in the country. And now I'm a citizen. Whoop. But that was an added layer, if you can think about that, like how much more you really want to make a good impression on your work, because you want to make sure that you don't get deported.
Yeah. So like kind of chunking down on that a little bit further. So what would be, let's say, your 3 top tips for someone who's non-native to the UK to being noticed and being able to be sponsored if they're in an organization already? So they've got their foot in the door a little bit.
So if they've got their foot in the door and they're looking to get sponsored, I had a tactic when I came. My first 2 years where I didn't need to be sponsored, but the whole scheme on the first 2 years is supposed to be you come to the UK and you're young and you enjoy it and then you leave. But in my head, when I moved here, I'm like, I'm never moving back. I knew in my heart I'm here to stay. So the first half of that 2 years, I was trying to find a place to call, like, to be my forever, I'll say quote unquote forever place, a place where I could make a good impression so that they'd want to sponsor me. So the first year I was freelancing a little bit, went to Gray, and then when Adam and Eve came up, I jumped at the chance to go to Adam and Eve. And once I said, Adam and Eve, I have a year here where they don't have to sponsor me, and I'm going to do my best job so that they'll want to. So if someone's in that situation on their, like, like a tier 2 mobility, try and find a place that you can stay for a while and make a really good impression and make your, I guess, your intentions be known so that you can get sponsored. And for people that are in a job and maybe on a tier 2, people who are in that situation will know all this lingo I'm talking about. If you're in a tier 2 and you really are ready to make a move, don't just feel defeated. Put your feelers out there and just act like anybody else. Because once you go and you meet that person, you make the connection, they want you, it happens. And they do offer. So
when you said make your intentions known, who did you speak to and what did you say at Adam and Eve?
I mean, at Adam and Eve, it was my managers. I said, I love it here. I need sponsorship. Will you sponsor me, please? Please give me sponsorship. So that was that one. And then for McCann, it's like you have to be quite transparent about it. Like, I know that there was one job that I didn't get because they didn't want to sponsor me. So it all worked out because I got another one that was better. But that was the only time. I don't want to brag. It was the only time I didn't get a job here. And I think it's because of that. But it all kind of circled back and worked out in the end. So there's, not everyone's going to do it, but it's possible for sure.
And then, so you have your time at McCann as a project director. And how does the BBC creative role come around?
Well, that was crazy because when I was in Toronto, I had a little vision board because I'm all about that stuff. #Oprah. So then I had like a little vision board when moving to England, to London, trying to manifest. So I had like the BBC logo on it. I had the British passport. I had, this is really lame. I had a picture of like Nick Grimshaw riding a bike in a park because I thought he was like a cool London person and I wanted like cool London friends. So I remember, I mean, I'm not friends with Nick Grimshaw, but I did get to work at the BBC and I do have a British passport. So, I mean, 2 out of 3, not bad.
And probably out of the 3, they're the ones you wanted to manifest.
I mean, probably. I mean, I did see him at Dawson Superstore once. So I guess like,
there
you know.
There you go. The hat trick.
Yeah,
there you go.
You've got them all.
But I remember being the BBC's very iconic, obviously British brand.
Yeah.
And so that was always a dream. Even before I was like, how do I work there? But there was no role. I didn't know a role for me there, but I was at McCann and I was pretty happy there. And I got this phone call. It's really like random phone call on my maybe it's like my work phone. Mm-hmm. And it's like, hello, some random lady. And she's like, oh, hello. My name is so-and-so. And yeah, you don't know me, but there's this role at the BBC. And do you want to talk about it? I'm like, what? Is this, am I dreaming right now? And she said, yeah, do you want to meet? I'm like in the area. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna meet me like now. So I left work like right away.
Wow.
I like left and ran down the street in Holborn to meet this woman. And she's like, well, I'm there. I'm at BBC Creative and there are these ECDs there. And they were in the lift and I got the brief and they said, who would you want like for this role? Like, who would you want? And they were like, Metz. And I hadn't worked at Adam and Eve for like a while. So they hadn't seen me progress as project director. So it was for head of project management. So definitely not the production side. It was for project direction. They knew me more as like creative producer. They knew me as a baby Metz in London, first 2 years. Aidan Laurent, love you so much. Thank you. They had just said that in the lift.
Wow.
And she just found me.
Wow. No way.
And I'm like, that's amazing. And I loved working with them. They're so great. I mean, they've done such iconic work, and they're still doing iconic work.
So you got an interview then, or they just
Yeah,
said
they got
the
me an
job's yours?
interview. I was so nervous. They sent me to the wrong building.
Oh no!
So many BBC. I remember being so nervous. Sent me to the wrong building.
Is
Sent me
this
to
White City?
They sent me to the Oxford Circus building, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "Well, no one's coming down." They're like, "Oh, sorry, it's the White City." Ran to White City.
That's a long way. Wow.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is a comedy of errors. It's never gonna work out. But I was super nervous.
You must
nervous.
be quite late then after that.
Yeah, I was late. It wasn't my fault though. Like,
No,
just
it's
to
their fault.
clarify that.
Yeah.
But I remember going in being like, "Well, this is it." Like,
Were you
know.
thinking about this mood board at this time?
I think the mood board's always in my heart. Nick, if you're listening.
Yeah.
But I think I was just like, this, I felt in my heart like this has to work.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fear, being like, if it doesn't work, I'll be so crushed. But I went in there, I put on my best outfit. I just chatted to them. I tried to be the most authentic self. And I tried not to panic, because I knew by that point in my life that being nervous and being panicky and trying to overthinking things doesn't usually work. Just go in and try and make that connection. And it really did. I connected with them so much, and I was just like, this is it for me. I want it so bad. And all my friends were like, this is totally you. And, you know, wanting to work at the BBC, I mean, when I wanted to work there was no role. You never know what's going to change and what opportunities and what magical things. But I guess working well with everyone, Adam and Eve, and making a good impression, that actually paid off in the end. So you never know who's looking or what's going to happen. They might say no then, they might say yes later. And that was just another, I guess, a situation where I feel very lucky, very fortunate to have the timing work.
Yeah.
Grey Matter's new business tip for today: network. Get out and meet people now that you can. Networking is a great way to build relationships and to raise your profile. New business wins can often stem from a chance meeting at an event, and you can build rapport and trust so much quicker in person. Grey Matters is a straight-talking business development consultancy that empowers agencies to position, market, and sell themselves for new business success.
And you got the job?
Yeah, I got the job. And it was such a great job. I loved it. And
What were you working
Yeah,
on?
what did you get to do there?
So I was like head of project management there at BBC Creative. And so
that's like a creative
their in-house
agency.
So it was like an
doing
in-house agency.
What kind of work?
So we did everything. We did all their big campaigns. They still do. So some of the stuff that we worked on was like the World Cup tapestry ad. We got to do like the amazing Christmas animations with like the father-daughter. I remember that one. I worked on some of the brands that I loved, like Radio 1, which I'm just a big fan of. So, you know, being able to shoot with like Greg James and being able to do RuPaul's Drag Race, that was like probably the highlight of my life. Working on Luther, you know, Dracula, doing like the really cool billboards. Like we did such amazing work there. And I love just everyone was really down to earth, especially coming from an agency world. Everyone's super down to earth, obsessed with the product, great vibes, good. I just loved it. Absolutely. Like it really fulfilled that dream that I had.
What do you think your younger self would have said if you told her you'd be doing all this stuff?
Oh my God. I'm living the dream. When I was at RuPaul's Drag Race taping and Ru came out, I was like, I can't even believe my life. How did I get here? This is iconic moment in life. Like so lucky.
Can you tell people about it who don't know?
So if you don't know about RuPaul's Drag Race, you got to come on, guys, get with it, because it's only the best show on television. But basically, it's like a drag race, I guess, competition. You can catch it on BBC. It's a UK, but it's also a worldwide franchise. There's like American ones. They have in Netherlands, Spain, Australia. That season's not so great. But RuPaul is a very, I think, inspirational person anyway. So that was just a culmination of like everything I ever wanted. And being able to be a part of like the first ever UK season. That was so cool.
From BBC Creative, you move on in February 2020 to VMLY&R.
Yeah.
Tell us about that position and what you did.
So to be honest, BBC was amazing. And I was so sad to leave, but I had a bit of itchy feet, I guess. Like,
You wanted more.
I
Again.
wanted more again.
Operations director. How was that experience? I mean, you're stepping up into very senior roles now.
Yeah. So after the head of project management role, which was, I guess, my first taste of being management, and, going into a new role, I was very nervous and I wasn't sure how to approach it. But I think actually Jo House, who was my my boss at McCann, she gave me some really great advice. And she now does like management training and has a Courageous Leaders Club. So she's definitely, I was very lucky to have a boss that's so focused on that.
What was the best advice she gave you?
I mean, she gave me a book to read. I said, what am I doing? So she gave me a book, The First 90 Days, when I resigned from McCann.
Okay.
And she's like, this book is really helpful.
So you said to her, I don't know, you got this job as operations director?
No, well, this is a head of project management, kind of
Okay.
like getting into management. And I
see.
said, I'm going to this role. I've not done this. And she gave me that book, The First 90 Days. And she's like, this is really helpful. Read that. So I actually did read it. And I felt like it gave me some tools to prepare. And then when I actually went into the role, I felt like I need to do an audit. And that's kind of my style. It's like, before you come in guns blazing, get a lay of the land and understand who's there, what's the vibe, good, bad.
How do you do that? Walk us through
Well,
it.
it's one. I talked to everybody. I talked to every single person when I started the BBC. I talked to everyone on the team, on like every team. I talked to all the heads of marketing. I talked to the heads of my media.
And what do you ask them? What's the agenda?
I
for the
say,
meeting?
what's going on? What do you like? What do you not like? Like, what's been a problem? What do you want to see? What's the ideal situation? What can I do to make your life easier? And then see if there's any common ground. It's just like it sounds so simple, but I remember the head of BBC One, after she said, Metz, it's so great. Like, you just came and just listened to us. And it made it just made a big impact.
So is this your advice for people stepping up to maybe a management position? Or is to talk to everybody?
Don't forget to talk and listen and get different sides of the story, because a lot of managers maybe become successful because they're good at their craft. But once you become a manager, it's not about your craft all the time. It's about your people skills. And some people just don't have that coming as natural to them, which is fair enough. But then you have to learn how to do that. But there's no training for that. There is training, but not necessarily readily available when you get the job. People just assume you're going to figure out how to be a good people person. But it's not everyone's forte. And most of the time, people just want to be heard, and you just need to listen and understand that as much as we evaluate our team, they need to evaluate us too. And one of my evaluations actually at the BBC was to have more one-on-ones, because I'm like, I sit with them, it's enough. And they're like, no, we want more time with you. You don't think that, because you don't want to think, oh, my team wants more time with me. I'm so special. I'm so important. But actually, that was feedback. So more is better. It's hard when you're really busy and you don't have time, but it does make a difference, because they're the ones who are actually on the ground getting it done. You need to understand what's going on with them.
From here, as operations director, you move towards November 2020. How does your new position come about?
I get a phone call being like, well, the Mother Network is starting a creative agency, a new independent one, and they want production as one of their founding members.
And give some context for those not in the industry listening. Mother.
So Mother Network is like pretty iconic independent creative agency. They're still independent. So not like you maybe another bigger, I guess, WPP, Publicis, Omnicom, but they are still independently owned. But there's Mother London, there's Mother New York, Shanghai, LA, and a whole suite of other independent like creative businesses that are within that network.
And they're one of the largest.
Independents. Yeah. So they've done such great work for the past 20 years. And I mean, they're just one of the places that everyone loves. And it's one of the places that when I came here, it was just like, Mother.
And any examples of the work that they've done over the years?
I mean, they've done amazing work. They did all the KFC work and like transform that brand. They do like all the IKEA work. I mean,
so when KFC ran out of chicken,
Oh yeah, the FCK stuff.
Yeah.
I
them.
mean, that was them.
And IKEA as well.
IKEA, just for years and years doing an amazing IKEA work, and I mean they have a whole suite of brands, but they've been doing this for so long. So being a part of that network, pretty prestigious, and also being independent is really nice because I've always worked for really, really big places. And I think that it was kind of like a nice idea to go a little bit more independent.
So what did you think when you got that call?
I was like, they don't want me.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I thought, oh, well, it's very production heavy. I've been more in the other world, but it's also a co-founding role. And I'm very, I guess, well versed in starting new things and operating, an agency as well.
Had you ever thought of like being a part of a founding team of a company?
Honestly, I never even thought about it. But once that opportunity came, I thought it was a no-brainer. Was it scary? Yeah, a little bit. I didn't want to overthink it. So, having these initial conversations, just trying to stay cool about it. But when I met everyone, I just thought, this is really exciting. It's like an opportunity for, I guess, we're not the next generation, but we're the next generation at this level. So I suppose we've all come up at the same time. We've all seen what works and for what maybe doesn't work. And also all the big changes in the last 2 years in terms of like people, the mood of how we approach each other, how we approach equality, how we approach diversity, how we approach work-life balance. All of these conversations we're now on the cusp of it. And myself and the other founders, we're all on the same page with wanting to create an agency that is not another agency. It's not what we've come up in. It's the new generation. The pandemic happened, fine. But now we can approach the world a different way. We want to have a more open, inclusive environment. We want to do work that we feel passionate about and care about, and that's not driven necessarily by what the client thinks they want. It's more about creating that conversation, that transparency. It's about collaboration, and that's kind of relationship that we love with our clients as well. It's like having these open conversations and not really having any secrets and too much hierarchy. And even working with production, it's like being super transparent, kind of no BS attitude that I always wanted, wanting to speak freely about how I feel about this. If I think this is wrong, if I think this is right, creating an environment that everyone feels nurtured in, is everyone's just nice. No jerks,
What is the difference, being hired, or being involved in co-founding a company? What is that process like?
I think that being a co-founder, there's like two jobs. I feel like we all have a lot of jobs. It's a smaller agency, so it's not like
how many of you are
I
there?
think there's like roughly 20-ish. So
what was it when you started?
I don't know, probably less than 20, maybe like 13.
Okay, yeah.
It's definitely growing all the time, which is amazing. But you have a few jobs. So you have, your department job. So I'm head of production. So I have to think about that stuff. And you think about your team. But then also you have to think about your agency and the agency culture and how you are, what kind of environment you're creating as well. And also just how you want to present yourself to the outside world and being more of a face for the clients as well. Especially as production, we don't usually have to do that all the time in terms of like pitches or chemistry meetings. So there's another layer of being a face and trying to present a certain trying to share what we have with the world while also trying to be a head of department. But also because we're a small team, sometimes I'm doing a junior production role as well because something just needs to go out the door. So we all have to like put on many hats. And I think that kind of makes it fun and it keeps us on our toes as well.
Why did it all come about? What was the, mother, other, what's the story?
Right. So we've had a few names because now we're the or, but essentially it was pandemic time. So I keep saying it. I said I wouldn't talk about it, but there was just a shift in moods, right? And independent creative thinking felt like what was really thriving at that time because everyone was pretty busy at Mother and a lot of the agencies that were independent and creative, they were thriving because that was what people wanted. So we just thought there's going to be a shift in the mood. The world is changing. So this is the time to kind of jump in when things feel a bit uncertain. Let's just go for it and try and create an agency for the future, and an agency that I think even if Mother was starting new in 2020, what would they look like? If we can start from scratch now, knowing what we know from our history, what would that agency look like?
Okay.
So it was an opportunity to start something from scratch with a brand new world that we're entering into.
I see. And what was it like? The agency originally called Other.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
So we were called Other, but there were some legal issues. No fault of anyone particular that we did settle, but it was just better for us to move on with a new name. So we're now the Or.
Okay.
Brilliant. Cool.
And you had a name change.
I did have a name change.
Tell us about that.
I guess in the wise words of iconic Adele, divorce babes.
Okay.
So I'm back to the OG name.
Back to the OG. Anything you'd like to share about that experience?
You know what? I guess if I had to say, it's been a 5-star divorce. I've had some other friends divorcing, and it sounds like a real nightmare, like custody and assets and stuff. But we had it's a smooth transition. So I'm just grateful that we're both like very mature and still quite like amicable.
Any advice for anybody going through something similar? How do you have a 5-star divorce?
I mean, it depends on who you're married to. Maybe like marry someone who's nice and then divorce someone who's nice. That doesn't always work.
Words,
Some sound advice. A bit challenging if you're past that stage.
Exactly. But that's why. Yeah.
Okay.
The respect. Don't ever disrespect your partner, even when you want to divorce them.
You've talked a lot about vision boards and attracting things and the secret and manifestation, spirit. What's your thoughts around, the universe you mentioned? What's your thoughts around how that all works? What do you believe in?
Well, I guess I would say I'm very much of the belief of I guess I'm a spiritual person. I just feel very connected to maybe what's beyond the tangible, if that makes sense.
What is beyond the tangible?
It's like, I know we like to think, people like to think. It's humans, we love thinking, and it really serves us well. It's created this world, for better or for worse. We're kind of flawed. We're like brilliant and stupid all at once. And so when you have a feeling, there's intuition. We have all these gifts that work. Like that stuff works. I mean, I've seen so many like articles on, say, women who are about to get attacked or have been attacked. And before they're like, I had a feeling, but I didn't listen to it. That is our intuition, and it's with us. Like I didn't ask for it. It's just, we have it. And there's so many other things that exist, like energy. When you meet someone, you get along, you feel good. You meet someone, maybe you don't feel as good. Why do people click? Why do people connect? Why do people get along? Why do people don't get along? Like there's something there.
What is that something?
That is our feeling. It is the energy that is just what's beyond what can be discussed. It's beyond what we can explain in words. Some things you just feel, you don't have to say.
And where did you get these ideas, like these perspectives from, let's say?
You know what? I had such an interesting chat with my mom when I went to see her at Christmas, because I don't remember all my chats I had in like as a young person. Like life happens and you can't remember everything. But she told me, she's like, you know what? When you were, I guess, in high school, you started asking me all these questions about like the universe and the world. And she was like, wow, this is really crazy that you're like asking me these questions at this age. Like your sister hasn't even asked me this. She still hasn't asked me this. I feel like my dad is a very spiritual person. My mother, I think she is as well. They weren't religious. They were like, I'm not baptized. They were very anti that. Their families were super religious in that sense. But I think that they do have like a spirituality around them. They really do feel about the energies, and they just are a little, hippy dippy in that sense. And so I felt maybe I got it from them, but there was just in me this feeling. I guess it's an empathetic energy. Some people just swing that way.
Do you think, how critical has that been to the promotions you've had, the success you've had in your career, and where you are now?
Well, I suppose to me, it's it's been really helpful because it's what I believed in and it's helped me and I've gotten me in a pretty good position now. And I think especially like maybe 12, 13 years ago when I really started to get more into that stuff, hashtag Oprah again, because she's all about that stuff. And I think I've always watched her since I was a kid. She got more into it, so I got more into it. I guess I was into it a little bit and curious before that because I was asking my mom about it and she was teaching more about like meditation and Buddhism and stuff like that. But then as I got a little older, I got more curious about it. And I think that it just helped guide me. It just gives me like a little bit of an anchor to follow. And it just gives me a little self-belief and a little hope. So I'm very like that.
Do you meditate?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
tell people what your meditation is like. And
it's pretty boring. Just like set an alarm for 10 minutes. Just sit. I did like Headspace for a while.
Okay.
But then when you graduate,
tell people what Headspace is.
So Headspace is an app that really helps with meditation, and I think it is really great. And they have different guided meditations. And they do like a series you can like graduate almost. You know, they have different levels, and I think by the time you get to the certain level, he just like says, "Okay, start," and then you sit in silence, and then he's like, "Okay, it's over." And I'm like, well, I don't need an app for that. I can just do that myself.
Timer. Yes.
I can just like do a little timer. Yeah. So it's just sitting and just whatever shows up.
Nice. And anything else you do for?
I do a lot of journaling. So I've had journals since I was 9.
Wow.
So they're a lot. If I ever want to write that book.
And what do you write in your journals?
So I write anything that comes. So some people are like, today I did this. I don't usually do that, even though I'm like, maybe I would like to know what I did. But usually it's just like it's like how I feel that day. It's more like a therapy, as in get something out that's on my mind.
And this is every day at a certain time?
It's like most of the days. I would say like at least the first half of the week when things are going well before I, go out for Thursday drinks and it goes to hell until Monday. But yeah, it's like in the mornings. Yeah. It's just nice to have a little coffee, a little quiet time, a little write in your journal, see how you're feeling, have a little time for yourself.
What do you say could be the benefits for professionals to journal more within their day-to-days?
I mean, for people who have a lot on their mind, I'd just like to get it out. I find it very therapeutic just to get all of that outings out on a page. And sometimes it's like work, sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's I'm annoyed about this, sometimes it's like actually I'm in a good mood. It's just for some reason it works for humans to do that. I'm not sure like there's the science behind it. But it's good to get the feelings out because it's like a release. Like I don't know if you heard this, some animals when they have like some kind of like battle or something happens and you watch them after, they kind of shake it off, like ducks do this little shake and shimmy.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're just like letting go. And we don't do that. We just hang on. So maybe it's just an example of just like letting go. Exercise also, they're like, I think it's just another example of letting go.
Have you read The Power of Now?
Oh yeah, I'm all Eckhart is my guy.
What do you like about that?
I love that in A New Earth. I love it because it's so simple. I love Eckhart Tolle because I don't know if whoever hasn't go on YouTube because he's like this really unassuming like German man and he's really soft spoken and he had an epiphany and then he realized that like living in the present moment's like basically solves all your problems. And he's got books, he's got loads of YouTubes, loads of people ask him a question, name a question. He always has the same answer, but yet it's been like 10 years and he's still doing these lectures and he just says the same thing over and over and it just always works. He's just like, just live in the present moment because then you don't worry about the past, you don't worry about the future. You're just here now. So don't worry about living now. That doesn't exist. Just live now. So like they'll ask about love, they'll ask about relationships, they'll ask about work, they'll ask about health, they'll ask about, he's like, just live now. It's that simple, but read the book. All the books, but that's the essence of it. It's just so simple to understand. So that's why I just love it. I just really just gets you back to being again. Not thinking, just feeling, being, just existing. And that's when most of the great stuff comes out, I think.
What role has being in the present moment played in the success that you've had?
I feel like as I got older, maybe more into management roles, you have to be more of a personality, or you have to speak more to a larger group. And I don't know, most people don't love that. People don't really love public speaking. I personally am not the biggest fan. But I had to break through that and living in the present moment and just trusting that whatever is. So it's like prepare, do your homework. But then when you're in the moment, just go with it. That's when people really connect to you the most, I find. I guess that's when the authentic self comes out, the authenticity comes out. So as I've been getting more into those roles, having to be in more uncomfortable situations, even like today, you know, like there are lights and everything, you can feel like you're on the spot. So being more in the present moment helps you connect with that moment, especially when you're, say, you know, have a big job. I've got like loads of emails probably piling up. You've got different meetings pull you this, that, and the other direction. And then now I have to sit and I want to connect. So I have to turn all that stuff off, or else I'm not going to have a good time with you guys. So I think it's helped me now in this second phase of my life. Just enjoy all of the chaos and fun and intensity that comes with having a role where you're pulled in a lot of directions.
Great. Well, yeah, it sounds like a very helpful way to manage, you know, the stresses of being in a leadership position and pulled in different directions and a lot asked of you. And it sounds like your attitude to life and your personality and willingness to be curious and open, people have connected with that and they see that in you, and they see that's a lot of value for us as a company, and possibly played a big part in the career moves that you've had, and for people to be in a lift and go, who's right for this job? Metz tea. You know, so it seems really important.
I feel like probably thinking about 10 years ago to now, that has been probably my biggest achievement, is the connections I've made with everyone. And in this industry, so many people, it's the people make it, you know. There's so many great people that work here, like in this whole industry. So many creative people, really curious people, outspoken people, wacky, sensitive, like straightforward, harsh, really smart, like a little bit airheady. Like we need everybody to make this work because we're talking to the world. And so I've actually loved that. And I think being able to have all of these connections, and, you know, when you go to events and you see I went to Campaign Awards and it's like a big reunion after 2 years, it's like, this is so much fun. It made me, I'm super proud of that. And I think I just want to thank everybody and just, I love everyone.
A lovely message. And what is next for Metz? What would you like to do next? Maybe professionally or personally? Do you have particular things that you'd like to do in this life?
Well, now that I've gotten my citizenship in August, which was like basically my biggest life achievement of all time.
That was the other piece on the vision board.
That was the vision board, and that was hard because it takes a lot of paperwork, a lot of money. They don't make it easy, UK, but I did it. That was almost like a fresh start for me. And now I'm, you know, I just had a milestone birthday, and I feel like the world is my oyster. I think personally and professionally, I mean, I'm just so proud of the OR, what we're doing. And I just feel like this is it's like a renaissance. We're coming into like the roaring 20s again. So I'm super excited about what we're doing there and the work we're doing and like the culture we're building there. And so super focused on that. And then also just continuing building connections, building relationships, and enjoying what life has to offer, and just living in the present moment and seeing where that takes me.
What are your goals with the OR?
I think for me personally, I know that obviously the work is really important, and we want to make really good work that is full of integrity, creativity. So I believe in that, but I've never been a real addy kind of person, and I'm always about the people. Obviously that is what helped bring me up. And I've always,
you say addy type of person,
like an advertising, like I don't know everything about advertising all the time, you know. Sometimes I'm like, oh, you know, skip. Sorry, but I think that also helps maybe have a light amount of jadedness, helps like create work that maybe is a little bit less cliche, you know. So I see it as an asset. But I think that having the right connections and creating a great environment for people to thrive, to me, that's been my passion. Because working in production, it's all about the craft, but it's also about the people, project management, operations, and being a co-founder and building a culture in an agency is so important to me. So for me, I really want to, and I think we are doing it, but to continue thriving, building a culture and an agency that is where people really feel like they can contribute, that they're progressing, they're growing, they have purpose, and that they can take their skills and they can keep them in the agency, but also they can spread their wings and fly. And so everyone who comes through the OR feels like they left better and they left stronger, and they really push themselves and were motivated in a healthy way.
How do you do that? How do you create this culture that you want to create?
To me, it's about, again, listening and having that right balance of understanding what people want and also like directing and mentoring and being able to create an environment where it's not just about you get what you want, I get what I want, or, you know, it's not a dictatorship. It's almost like any healthy relationship where you both learn from each other. I want you to be able to do what you want to do. I want you to be able to push yourself and create an environment where you can do that. So we have this thing called the OR projects that we're like super passionate about. And essentially we create our own projects and we treat them like a client project. So we were able to do like a Brexit Christmas pack where we had a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke about Brexit, and that was amazing. We shoot it ourselves, we concept it ourselves, we PR it ourselves, and that had some great pickup. We're working on some other projects too. We did the Vagina Museum, which was a pro bono project, which was really awesome.
Tell us about that.
So we are promoting the Vagina Museum's new location in Bethnal Green. And so we did a whole poster series that were a little bit, I guess, what's the word? They were fun. They were fun, a little bit cheeky, and beautifully done. And I think that, you know, when we're running some of these lines through the legal team and they're like, well, it's a little bit controversial, or like, you know, it's a little bit risque, let's say that. But we don't want to be, we want to be an agency where we're like, we can write vagina massive on a poster. We should be doing that. That shouldn't be risque anymore. Like, let's promote that. So that is one of the things that we do as a tool to help creativity thrive and maybe not have to always focus on the bottom line, because it's really about creating that work and creating that spirit of curiosity and creativity.
What other work are you proud of at the OR that you've done?
Well, we're working on Taco Bell, which is super fun. And we had our first retail campaign that came out, I guess, just in the spring. And I love it because, I mean, Taco Bell's super brave and they're amazing. They just are really forward thinking and they're just super collaborative and a great partner. So
what have you done with them?
So this was our first campaign that we've just done. And essentially, I really love it because they're really embracing, I guess, like a new way of approaching like work. And they're super brave with everything. So it might not necessarily be what you'd expect. It's a little bit wacky. It's a little bit out there. It's a little bit in your face, but it also feels really modern, really fresh. And I can't imagine some other people might not have been as brave to buy that. So it's been really great working on that, and we're still working on more stuff with them. So you'll definitely see more. And even working, like the Brit Awards was amazing with YouTube. I love that brand. And
what did you do for that?
So we did Brits Unseen. So we worked with some artists that were sponsored by the Brits, and we went and we were able to shoot them and get their story, a little bit more of a personal story of how they've come up and how YouTube's really been like there for them and how that connection really helped them grow as an artist. So I really love that space as well. Music, like just brands that really speak to me and also feel like they're quite relevant as well. Yeah. So to me, that's where I feel like really aligned, and I feel like just really great partners for us to work with, and kind of what we're looking to do more of.
Ash, what are your reflections, lessons from Metz's life?
Lessons from Metz's life. I think the element of pushing forward and knowing that there's another step to go to, I think that's a really important one. And that element of, right, I'm going to London, I'm going here, that kind of reminded me of when I went to university. I just applied, I got in somewhere, even though they gave me a deferred place for a year, I never went there until the day I went there. And that was like the first day I'd ever moved out ever. And that was it. I remember the door shutting, my mum driving off, and I'm just like, I'm here now. Deal with it. I knew one person, like you knew one person. It's just like, you just got to get on with it, right? So I think that really resonates with me. And the aspect of by being yourself, by being out there, by just, being unapologetically yourself, people can remember you. And then you never know when they're going to say your name again for something else.
And what are your final words of inspiration and motivation to anybody who's going through anything similar to what you've been through? What's your inspirational message?
Well, I would say if you feel like maybe there's more for you out there, or maybe you're feeling like a little stuck, or you have big dreams and aspirations, you're not sure how to get there. It feels like maybe it's a huge gap between where you want to be and where you are. Maybe make a vision, know where you want to get to, but then just focus on maybe the little step, the one step ahead of you, and be ready to pivot in a direction, because I never thought I'd get to where I am now, but I knew I wanted to live in London. I knew I wanted to work at the BBC. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I just took it one step at a time. There's so many hidden opportunities that are surrounding you. And if you are feeling a bit negative and you're not being open to them, they might just pass you by. So definitely be open to the opportunities. Know where you want to get to, but be open to maybe it coming in a way that you didn't expect. And be there, work hard, have a good attitude, because that might just be the step you need to get to the next step. It's all about the little steps in between. It's not about the big thing. And now that I got the big thing, and I'm just going off after the BBC. I mean, that was the goal. So you never know where you're going to end up. Life is a journey, I suppose. It's really cliche, but I'm still figuring it out myself. Who knows? Who knows where I'll end up? Hopefully somewhere good.
That's it. Maybe you will be a Spice Girl one day.
Do you know what? You never know.
Never know. Take it a day at a time.
Exactly.
And breathe.
Just live in the moment, guys. Yeah. Make a plan to live in the moment.
Thank you, Metz. It's been a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Metz.
Thank you so much. Thanks.